Well, Barbara, it was really great that you could bring the symptom summary worksheet here so that we could get a quick idea of how you've been doing over the last week or so. And it's nice to see that things have been going well and that you haven't had too many problems and no major mood swings. But you did note that there was that problem with a big blow-up with your son, and you told me that that's sort of an example of things that sometimes happen in other places, like at work and so forth. And then you mentioned the problem with the tremor. So those were the two things you wrote down on your agenda.
Right.
So you ready to get rolling with that?
Yeah.
So which one would you like to start with?
I think I'd like to talk about the fact that I've been getting more edgy at work and then with my son.
Okay. Now, do you want to talk about the work thing to start, or do you want to focus in on the son, the problem with your son as an example?
I think I'd rather focus in about the problem with my son.
Yeah, that sounds like
first.
that's more immediate, happened recently, and there was a lot of feeling about that.
Right, right.
Okay. So why don't we just review what happened during that situation? So he came home from school and cut school or something?
Yes, he cut a class, and I got a call from the school telling me about it.
Right.
And I just feel like I can't take any more of these calls.
Yeah, and then things really got pretty worked up when he came home.
Yes,
what you told me.
yes, very much.
Right. One idea I had for trying to learn about this kind of a reaction you have and to try to help you build some skills to manage it is to go back to that concept that I think you were taught when you were in the hospital about automatic thoughts. Do you remember that term that we used?
Yeah, yeah.
So those
I
are the
do.
thoughts that are just pop through your mind whenever you're in the middle of a situation, and they often drive your emotions. They're things that influence your emotions really strongly. So I wonder if we could go back over this scene with your son and try to figure out what kind of automatic thoughts might be going through your head at that time.
Okay.
Can you try to think back to it, sort of put yourself back in that scene in your mind?
Well,
So what was going through your mind then?
it probably actually started even before he walked in the front door after
Was it?
school.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
what was
and
going through your mind then?
I had just felt like I'd had it. You know, I've been
Yeah.
a single mom. I've worked hard. I don't get any respect. I don't get any help from him. I just had it.
Yeah, so no respect. We're thinking you weren't getting any help, and then you were really mad at him, I gather.
Yes.
And as this thing evolved, were there any more intense thoughts that went through your head? You know, more extreme than that?
Well, yeah, I did have a few thoughts that he's going to be like his dad. He's going to be a loser, and he's going to be a bum.
Oh, I see. So that's much stronger kind of thinking.
Yeah.
And as you got closer to the time when you actually had the blow up, were those the kind of thoughts that were going through your head? Like he's a loser and he's a bum and they're
Yes.
turning like his dad and so forth and so on?
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, so I have a hunch that was really building up some of the strength of your anger. Yeah. And then once you did get angry like that, how did you behave?
Well,
What'd you
I
do?
just get so angry, I just throw things. Whatever's around, I reach for it and throw it.
And I think you
Just-
mentioned something about screaming and yelling
Yep.
and so forth.
Yep. I just have no control. Scream, yell, and throw things.
Right. And then, you know, after things settle down, you know, a couple hours later or maybe the next day, how do you feel about it?
Well, I have probably a lot of guilt.
Get down on yourself for it? Wished you hadn't done it like that?
Yeah. Feel
Right.
bad about the things I
Yeah.
said.
Okay. Well, what I'm wondering is if we could use some of the principles of this cognitive behavior therapy to try to give you a better handle on this. And one of the ideas I have is to try to look at the kind of thoughts that are going through your head when you're real angry like that, when you're real irritable, real upset. And there's a certain character to those thoughts. They seem to me to be pretty extreme. Like, I don't get any respect. He's a loser. He's a bum. He's just like his dad. So they're real absolute kind of extreme thoughts. And when you have those kind of absolute extreme thoughts, what do you think that does to the way you feel?
I don't think it helps. I think it just makes me feel worse.
Yeah, I think so. You know, sometimes those thoughts are almost inflammatory. You know, like they set you on fire. They set your emotions on fire because they're so extreme. I've seen people, for example, that have things like road rage. You might have heard of that. And when people
yeah.
go out there and, you know, somebody's cuts them off or something, and then they have these thoughts that pop right into their head, and they're usually really intense thoughts. And then they get so angry, then they do things that, you know, sometimes even get them into trouble, like, you know, driving recklessly or something like that. So what we might do for your situations is to try to step back and see if we could check out those thoughts and see if they're really on target or whether they're maybe a bit intense and getting you into trouble. So at the time you have thoughts like that, like he's a loser and he's a bum and so forth, how much do you believe him if you were going to try to rate him on a 0 to 100% scale?
Well, right when I'm having the thought,
Yeah, right in the middle of the
I
scene.
believe it, 100% then, right then, yeah.
Yeah, so if you believe it 100%, I can see why you'd be really upset. Maybe things would spin out of control to some extent. Yeah. So how about in the cool light of day, like right now? Here you are sitting with me and we're trying to think as clearly as we can. So how accurate is that kind of a broadside against your son?
It's not 100% accurate, like in the cool of day, like you would say.
Yeah. How close is it to 100%?
Probably 30.
30, okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
He still aggravates me at times.
Yeah, I can tell he does. And so I'm sure there's some things that he does that you'd like to help him change, so he doesn't get into trouble at school, doesn't cut school, and so forth. So there is a problem there.
Right.
But then your reaction to it seems to, in a way, aggravate the problem, from what you're telling me.
Seems to, yes.
Yeah, it doesn't help resolve it from what I've heard so far.
No.
Okay. Yeah. So now if we come back and take a look at these thoughts, and you say that now they're only maybe 30% accurate, are there any positives about your son, some things that you could bring into your mind that might help you take a bit of a different look at him when you're in these such scenes with him?
Well,
does he do anything that helps out around the house, or is there anything about him that you really like?
he mows the lawn sometimes, and
Yeah.
he's helped me out with the dishes before, and he's been on the honor roll before.
Has he?
Made the basketball team.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're proud of him to some extent.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yes, that's true. I
Yeah.
love him.
Do you? So I'm trying to get at your real feelings for your son. So you said love. Is that the predominant feeling, or what do you think?
Yes.
Okay, but sometimes these
He
kind of
pushes my buttons.
yeah, I can tell
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Sometimes these reactions get in the way of showing that love.
Right,
Don't they?
exactly,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. So why don't we spend a little bit more time working on this today, and then you can practice this for homework, and we can continue to work on these things with anger and irritability.
Okay.
So what I'm going to suggest we do is that we pull out one of these cards. You've done these before, I think, these coping cards. I usually keep this stack of index cards here so we can do one. And the problem here really is your anger outbursts and your irritability. And one of the things I'm suggesting you do is when you find yourself beginning to get into that you try to catch these automatic thoughts and step back and think about whether they're on target or not.
Okay.
Would that be okay to do? So I'm going to spot your automatic thoughts and try to check them out for how accurate they are. And then the other thing to do might be, say if you're in a situation like this with your son, is to look at some of the counterbalancing evidence about your son. You told me you love him, and he's done some good things. He's been on the honor roll and so forth and so on. So do you think you could try to take that balanced look at your son when you're in the middle of these scenes, these kind of scenes?
I think I could.
Okay, so let's put that down too, is try to take a balanced look at the situation. All right. Now, before we move on to the other agenda item, maybe there's some other things we could come up with too. So let's see, when you're in the middle of scenes like this, whenever you're getting real intense, real emotional, I wonder if there's anything that you could do differently, any way you could act differently, any behaviors you could do that might detune this a bit, that might help you back off the intense emotion that seems to be spinning out of control. Anything you can think of?
Possibly go out and take a walk.
Yeah. Have you ever done that sort of thing in the middle of an anger outburst before?
No.
You really haven't? So you usually just let the thing go on to its conclusion?
Yes. Yes.
All right.
That, or possibly take a time out like I used to suggest for the kids to do.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I did that some with my kids also. So you're going to give yourself some of the prescription you gave for your kids, huh?
If it would help, I'd be willing to try it.
Okay. I can see you laughing a little bit. Like maybe this lightens the mood a bit to think of something like this. Okay, good. So we'd say maybe do something to step away from the situation, like take a walk or take a time out.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, one more point that just comes to my mind is that the way you describe this, when you get so upset and then you begin to throw things and yell and scream and so forth, that doesn't appear to help you solve the problem in any way or work out any kind of solution. So I'm wondering if you could come up with any kind of a plan that you could try to put into place with your son to try to work out some kind of solution for this.
Well,
Think about that for a minute. What could you do?
Maybe we could try just talking, and I could just maybe talk to him and hear his side and try to resolve it.
Okay. Have you done much of that with him?
No.
Yeah, not so much. So this is usually almost an automatic response of getting upset with him and beginning to talk loudly to him, and then things don't go to a very good place.
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
So it looks like you're going to try to practice stepping back and having a real conversation with him about what the problem is and figuring out some kind of a solution.
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds good.
And if you try to do that, maybe you could come back in at another session and we could talk about how that's going, and I might be able to give you a few tips or some ideas on how to work on that and communicating with your son. Is that fair enough?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So we put down that you're actually going to try to back off and talk with him about the problem and try to figure out a solution.
Okay.
Okay, good. All right. Now, before we go on, we have another agenda item, or maybe some other things to talk about today. Any questions about what we just did, or any feedback to me about what we were working on? How did it seem for you, this
I think I'm
this
going to
exercise?
like this.
Okay. I hope it'll work for you.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to suggest to you is that this kind of approach might work not only for the situation with your son, but maybe other scenes in your life or other situations in which you're getting irritable or riled up and finding that your emotions are getting really intense. And you can use this to try to get some better control of it so that you don't spin into one of these periods of getting hypomanic or really real irritable, and then later on you look back and say, well, this is something that really caused some pain in my life.
Okay.
So is that good enough to work on that?
Yeah.
Okay,
that
great.
sounds good.